there are a few things in life that I would consider to be as agonizing as a brilliant, really engaging horror film with a really diabolical ending. Now, I'm not going to divulge what the ending to The Turning is, just in case you want to watch it, but I have to be honest, I have been this undecided or undecided in a long time about whether or not I would recommend a film, because I thoroughly enjoyed it right up until the last 10 minutes, maybe even the last 5 minutes. And then the ending happened, and the ending is very unclear. And I'm so glad I'm not the only one. I got to the end and thought, have I just missed something? So I will talk about why I felt the ending was terrible towards the end of this, just in case you really don't want to know anything else about it. But I will just discuss it briefly and the things that I actually really thoroughly enjoyed. So this was released last year in 2020. It's directed by Floria Sigismondi. I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly. Written by Chad Hayes and Kerry W. Hayes, based, of course, on Turn of the Screw by Henry James, which is a book I'm very fond of. I'm very particular about adaptations of that or films that are heavily influenced by it, by that story. And there are some really terrible versions of it. But this one, aside from the ending, I really enjoyed. So our protagonist, Kate, played by Mackenzie Davis, goes to this house to look after these two children, Miles and Flora. Miles is played by Finn Wolfhard, obviously fantastic performance. Flora is played by Brooklynn Prince, and she is brilliant. When we were first introduced to her and she takes Kate on a tour of the house, I thought to myself, even if this is a terrible film, I'm thoroughly enjoying this character. I think Flora is a brilliant character. I really like her. I thought she was very well acted. That for me was a massive plus. We also have the character of Mrs. Grose, played by Barbara Marten. I didn't like her as a character, but I liked the atmosphere that she brought to this. She's got a kind of Mrs. Danvers quality to her, in the way that she's portrayed. Mrs. Danvers protecting Rebecca's name, kind of the way that Mrs. Grose treats certain characters in this, and I really enjoyed that, and I thought that was brilliant. The character of Quint, I can't say too much about, but I feel he was underdeveloped. Really, more information about him should have been peppered throughout for certain angles of this to make sense. But in terms of characters, that is my only complaint. I think he was really underdeveloped, underplayed. But beyond that, the characters are great, they're very well written, they're very well acted. The narrative, if you're unaware of what this is, basically this nanny, so in this case, Kate, starts to feel like she's losing her mind. She feels like things are going wrong in the house. She's kind of suspecting that the children may be taunting her, or there could be a ghostly presence. She doesn't know which it is. And we're kind of led down both paths throughout the film of, is it the children, or is it one of the children just making her seem like she's going insane, or is there actually a ghostly presence? Is this a ghost story? I'm not going to answer that question, but then, well, I will save that to the end because it might be a slight spoiler, but I'm not going to say what it is or what we're led to believe, but I will say that I could not make up my mind. With the opening scene, I was very much of the mind that it could have been a ghost story, and then as the narrative progressed, I thought maybe it's psychological, and I went back and forth throughout it, and I liked that. I liked that not knowing where it was going, what the film was going to represent. Also, the last point I want to mention before I just briefly discuss the ending without saying what happened in the end, the music, the soundtrack, sound effects, amazing. Across the board, absolutely loved that. Also the settings, the filming locations. I don't know exactly where it was filmed, but the house is absolutely stunning. Really, really gorgeous, and the exterior is amazing. If anybody knows where it is, please feel free to tell me. I would love to visit there one day. Right, so the ending. As I said, I won't say what happened exactly, but I will just kind of talk a little bit about why I thought it ruined an otherwise really enjoyable film. And I'm not the only person who thought this. as I said, I did do a quick Google after watching it to see if anybody else could actually help me to understand, and no, everybody else has said the same thing. It's not even open-ended, it just doesn't have an ending. It just ends, which hopefully will make more sense than what it sounds like. And I didn't like that. There were too many questions left unanswered. It's not a case that we are left to make up our own minds about what we think. In a way, it feels really lazy, like the film couldn't be bothered to offer up a suggestion for what had happened, or and the very last frame, the last frame just before the credits roll, that last bit, it's just too vague to mean anything or to lead us in any direction. And a lot of the times with films that have open ends and that don't answer questions, they're fun to analyse, and you can pick apart bits in the narrative and try and work out what the film, the director or the writer might have been saying. But that's not the case here. It's like a couple of the pages of the end of the script had gone missing, or a few reels at the end of the film had, disintegrated, because it's, not the 21st century. And that was really disappointing, because I really thoroughly enjoyed it, and now it's just bitter and has left a horrible taste in my mouth. And I honestly, part of me wants to really, really recommend this to you, because, as I said, start to almost finish, thoroughly enjoyed it, but I don't want you to experience the same frustration that I and apparently a lot of other people have felt once it's over. So I don't really know if I would recommend it or not, and it's very rare that I'm on the fence. Normally, if a film's not that great but I enjoyed bits of it, I will still recommend it because you might like it. But this one, I don't want to put you through it, but I really want you to watch the majority of the film and tell me what you think of it. If you're prepared for the disappointment, I'd say the journey is worth it. Maybe just. If you have any theories on the ending, if you've seen it, I'd love to hear your thoughts, just to hear what your kind of take on that is. I thoroughly enjoyed it for an hour and a half, and then the last couple of minutes it completely ruined what could otherwise have been a really fabulous film.